Welcome everybody to Swish for Real. Your host, Big Mike. Boogie Bob's not with us today, man, but we got a plethora of good guests today. Ryan from Cerebro Sports. How you doing, man?
What's up, guys? Good to be here.
And my buddy, I haven't talked to him in a minute. Yogi, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing great. Great to be here, man.
Man, appreciate you. And we have a consistent guest, Wild Dog. How you living?
Life is good, baby. Thank you for having me on, man. Thank you for having me on.
So today, our special guest, Ryan, man, he owns a stat company called Cerebro, man, and it's going to be one of our top topics today. Well, the number one topic today is what does stats, Ryan, this is a question toward you. What does stats do for players and how can they benefit from it financially and, so forth? What can you kind of give us on that and kind of talk about Cerebro before you get started there?
Yeah, man. Well, again, thank you. And I think stats, in my view, could be the number one point of advocacy for players. Like I always say it like this. We judge the winner of a game based on who ends up ahead on the scoreboard. And yet when it comes to scouting players, especially at the high school and grassroots levels, it's almost like we take the individual stats, we wad them up and we throw them away. One crazy statistic is 70% of the Americans that get drafted into the NBA, 70% of them were not considered top 100 high school prospects by traditional scouting services. That stat will even blow the minds of college coaches who are frankly on the front lines of eating a lot of the crap from that, because when you look at the transfer portal, 1 in 4 players is transferring any given year. The reason for that is a lot of reasons, right? But one big reason is there's a lot of mismatching, and the mismatching happens when you don't consider the right kids to be the top players and water doesn't really find its level. And so what can stats do? Just like the winner of a game coming out ahead is whoever's ahead on the scoreboard. It's that is true meritocracy, right? Like whoever earned that win is the winner. Very similarly, a meritocracy is let's gauge performances on the basis of who actually performs. Now, that becomes a pretty nuanced question, right? Like, how do you weigh all of these different statistical categories? It's a great question. It's one reason why stats haven't been considered, but the bigger reason why is stats just don't really exist, especially at the youth levels. So at Cerebro, we built the world's largest database of basketball box scores. The core unit that an NBA team will use in their draft projection modeling would be a college-style box score. And so we thought, hey, let's go see how many of those we can get. So we have over 1 million player records at this point, over 4,000 of the world's top competitions. This spans youth, collegiate, professional, domestic, international, boys, girls, men's, women's. And we're stitching all of those player careers together. So we're the only place on the internet, to my knowledge, you can go sign up for a free account and literally see LeBron James high school data alongside what he's done internationally, along with what he's done professionally. And every high school class, like that's just getting significantly bigger and bigger. And so our goal is to provide free and paid products for 3 main audiences. Those would be basketball professionals. We're talking agents, pro teams, college coaches. For them, run a global search. Show me all the players in the world that do fill in the blank. Boom, there you go. Those are the players. Maybe some of them you've heard of before. That's great. Assumption checks out. Some of them you never heard of. You're welcome. There's your diamonds in the rough. And some of them, why are they missing? You're welcome. We're going to save you your job, possibly, right? And then for players, that's the second big audience. And that's what we're talking about here. How do I actually stack up? Like, this is a crazy stat, but in the youth sports tourism business, there's $8 billion a year that gets spent. Basketball is the biggest share of that. There's 20 million kids playing basketball. None of them, again, thanks to this old system, none of them really know how they stack up, how they compare. So for free, we say you own your stats. Nobody else is giving them to you. Go sign up for a free account. Go see yourself and see how you're being discovered by these top decision makers. Our paid product allows them to see who's actually viewing their profile, how they're being discovered, how they rank in these searches. And then for fans, especially on college and pro, obviously not on kids, but we can even help provide them gambling insights and give them reads on lines and help them understand in a really simple way player performances. So we create 7 skill metrics to rule them all. Maybe I'll and some of our other topics, it might come up, but 2 overall skill scores that tell you what it was tell you how good a player was in a given competition or season. One of them is as simple as gold, silver, bronze. Like, it's very easy. It's easy to understand. And then 5 skill scores that tell you what it was a player was good at. But yeah, I mean, I think being able to tell a player how good they were in an event, how they stacked up, and then what specifically it was that they were good at. Eventually, number one right now, like, it's something that they can easily use and to advocate for themselves or be discovered. But in the future, as we begin to introduce AI products into this too, like, we can start to tell a player, like, a player thinks, hey, like, why am I not getting the same looks as this other kid? Obviously, if you should be getting those same looks, download your report and start sending it out. If that's the case, I don't know why college coaches aren't finding you on the platform, but if you come up short, though, which is the likelihood, then we intend to have AI tools that can help tell you, hey, like, this is why you're coming up short. This is what it would take to get to where you want to go, again, just based on the merits alone. So I think they can be a huge resource for players. And I don't know if where you're going with the monetary side was NIL, but I mean, that's super real too. They don't really even factor in most NIL deals right now the numbers, but we think that's the future, because you can go look on record with a lot of these top brands. They don't like backing players that don't end up performing on the floor. And social media metrics don't necessarily tell you who's going to be great on the floor. It tells you who has a great personality and who has a great following now. But we're in March. Like, there's stars being made right now. Those stars are predictable based on how good the players are. So as a brand, if you want an edge, there you go. So I think that's a huge component coming in the future too.
Wow. So with the AI component, man, how soon will that be on board for Cerebro? I mean, even the name Cerebro says, in my mind, AI.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Marvel fan, but I've been told if you are, Cerebro is what you actually. And somehow we got the trademark on that, which is amazing. But it's what you put. It's what you put on to actually, like, see all the mutants in the world. And so when you think about it in this context, you're able to see all the basketball players that match a certain criteria. So,
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But in terms of when it comes on, we're currently in the process of kicking off a new fundraising round where that's the core thesis. So it's a project that's in development right now. I expect we'll probably have products live sometime in the fall, be my guess.
So do you have a company in mind that's going to produce that AI technology for you guys?
Well, there's a good chance we'll do a lot of it in-house. At this moment, we are still considering all of our options. So if you know a great AI developer, have them give us a call. But obviously, like, a lot of folks are excited to work in sports. And the big thing in the age of AI is, like, what is an AI model is only as good as the data it gets trained on. Because we have this massive proprietary set of data, like, we're in the captain's chair in terms of being able to build a really great interface for, again, decision makers, players, and fans. And yeah, it means that we do have a decent amount of talent that's, like, willing to come try and build on top of that, if you will. But hey, we're still taking applications. Hit me up.
So I'll remember me and Dame had a conversation, and Dame has a YouTube channel, guys. If you didn't know, he talks basketball too. And we were talking about Cerebro, how you can actually get the stats, the data, and create a storyline from what you get from Cerebro, man. And then you can create a good storyline from it, and you can, like, produce good content from it. So that's one of the things I want to do eventually, just use the Cerebro as content. And make a great story, because I know we had only one story, and that was the James Jordan story. That's basically talking about his dad and his journey. But we're going to kind of cater that to something more tangible when it comes to stats. So, Wild Dog, your opinions on stats and how does it affect players nowadays?
Yeah, Big Mike, you kind of hit on. I mean, my first question or suggestion was going to be like, okay, if I'm a player or a parent of a player, how can I plug that into
Yeah.
the social media, because myself being around recruiters, scouts, so so be it. It's like I know the old heads are on Twitter or what they call X now, and the new school guys, the young folks, are on IG. So you have to be on one or the other or both. So it's like if you have so recruiters are like, post your grades. When you get your report card, post your grades. You get any recognition in school, post it. Like your official, PR in your social media account. And if I have a stellar game, is it a way with Cerebro for me to plug my athletes' numbers, kind of streamline or pipeline into his, social media or her social media?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Again, we actually have a free tier for college coaches. If you're a college coach watching this, like, hey, there is a free option for you on our platform, so you can run these searches and you can discover these players at no cost. And as a player, if you play in one of our events, we stat every single player. It doesn't matter if you're a non-user, a free user, a paid user. We don't care. It's meritocracy. You get out there. We tell the whole story. End of discussion. Now, as a player, again, if I want to go claim that that free account, go view myself. My recommendation is, if you like what you see, take a screenshot of it and go post it to whatever social media platform you prefer. But ideally, where the coaches are and where it is, you're going to get recognized. But that's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So yeah, man, with stats, it's like, my first thought is always like, man, everybody's always about points, Oh,
yeah.
And then like me, it's a lot of times it's the intangibles, because I grew up playing baseball. I know it's a basketball podcast, but just baseball people, when it comes to statistics, they're still as the other sports make advancements, they still behind.
100%.
They're still behind baseball analytics. So if you apply baseball type analytics to basketball, which is the number 3 sport in the world, I mean, there's a lot of great potential. So I love that you found this niche, because
really appreciate that. And I think the other thing it's so important to highlight is that meritocracy should count more than just points. So we look at things like in those 5 skill scores, as well as the overall ratings. We try to do our best to not overweight scoring alone. All of our metrics are like they're essentially accounting for 2 things: volume and efficiency within whatever skill category it is we're looking at. And of course, there are 5 skill categories. The scoring is only basically 2 of those. We also look at things like defense, playmaking skills, ability to create in certain aspects of the game. So we ideally don't overweight that, but at the same time, like the box score, it's great because we go with a full college box, so it's pretty good, but it will never tell the whole story. And that's the reason why we say, hey, this is only the beginning of scouting a player. This is not the end. You do not make a final decision based on this. You need to go to games. You need to call scouts. You need to call their grassroots coach. You need to call their high school coach. You need to meet the family. You need to take a visit. You need to watch film. Do everything you did. Just do it on the right players. Do it on players that can play at your level.
But it's like you hit it on. It's like, there's more opportunities to find a diamond in the rough, right?
Totally.
And I've expressed many times, and then you being a Mavericks fan too, it's like one of my first thoughts is Marquise Daniels. It's one of the things I dread, but one of the things I celebrate the most is when someone goes under the radar, undrafted, and then shows out. And it's like, okay, why didn't we see it? Or I knew about this guy. Why do you know about this guy? You know what I'm saying? Right. I've seen him play before. Why haven't you seen him play before? Or why did we all just miss him? And here he is showing out. I celebrate it. You know what I'm saying?
100%. 100%.
But it's 2024, and it's like you got to utilize all the tools available and all the new tools available, to your exposure, whether you're on the players end or on the, recruiting and scouting end. You got to use all the tools available, because less and less of that should happen, as often as it does now. You know? Yes, sir.
100% right.
Gotcha. And Yogi, I want to get your take on it, man. What are your opinion? What the stats do for players, and especially nowadays? And
Well,
you got Cerebro here to even give you
yeah,
some
I know, right?
insight.
I'm just thinking, man, it makes sense though, with college basketball being $1 billion industry, with the coaches and everybody getting paid all this mad money. They need to have as much information as they can, because it's important that we give them that they have everything they need in order to succeed, because their job's on the line. I was just looking at who was it? Yale just saw Yale beat somebody, Auburn a minute ago, and I'm thinking, what's going on? But man, I just think it's important that the coaches have everything they need in order to succeed. And I think that stats are very important. And I think they're also important for professionals as well. And which leads me to this. So Russell Westbrook is a stat machine. Was throwing up triple doubles every night. And yet when we talk about best point guards in the game, we say he's great, but we have an asterisk by it, which I don't really know what the asterisk is about. But the same with Luka. Luka throws up points, rebounds, and you see him doing it as you watch him. But yet we have an asterisk on his name as we see him doing it. And the same with Jokic. Jokic is 2-time MVP. So I guess my question is, do we only apply and use stats as we want to? Do it only counts if we're trying to make our argument, or because I hear this all the time. I'm like, you guys got to be crazy. Numbers don't lie. Stats do not lie. Men lie, people lie. Stats do not lie. And you got guys that put up numbers every night, and we discount them. I'm just trying to figure out.
People that are using stats lie, right? And that's your point. I think back during the pandemic, we got drug into doing like some pre-draft stuff. And so I got to know agents pretty well as they were attempting to recruit players to sign with their agency and whatever. As we got to kind of understand that game, and now I know people on the team personnel side as well, we've started to hear stories about how things like free agency discussions go. And generally the way it goes is this, because most analytics historically, being a baseball guy, Wild Dog, you understand this, like there's 100 different stat categories, right? And to your point, Yogi, maybe like these statistics make me look good. So as your agent, what am I going to do? I'm cherry picking the 7 data points. They're going to make you look good. Yeah. Guess what the GM who we're negotiating against does?
Picking the opposite.
He does the opposite. He picks the 7 that make you look bad. And so when we both cherry picked a grand total of 14 out of 150 data points, essentially we walk in like this and we put it down and we now just talk about opinions, right? And so that's what we're attempting to solve at Cerebro by creating these skill scores that are essentially like proxies for watching mass like volumes of games. We're designed to be the first step in the funnel, not the final step. But at the same time, we can tell you, we can give you a general idea of what a player is without having to necessarily watch them. And the way we got our start was we started talking to college coaches and we said, hey, coach, I know that it's obviously too difficult to go watch the millions of players that there are. But what if I came up with a analytical system that would allow you, even like our first investor was John Beeline, obviously not the youngest coach, right? So literally during the pandemic on a Zoom kind of situation like this, coach, hey, if we were able to come up with a system that looked at stats only and could evaluate them in the same way you could if you were to watch them, could you trust me to make the first round of cuts in your decision-making process? Yeah. And we could widen it. We could look at every player in the world doing this. Yeah, that's true. All right, well, here's the test. I'm going to show you, this is the way we sell college coaches. I'm going to show you the team that you just coached for 35 games and 100 practices, and tell me if these numbers look like the guys like the back of your hand. To a man, they say yes. And so if you can trust me to analyze your team that you know extremely well, surely you can trust us to analyze, again, first round of cuts, not the final cut, the first round. Right. And that's how it goes. But you got to have these high level metrics that can serve, again, to kind of like tie everything together, so you don't end up with such granularity that it's not that's useful when you're really in my view, when you're really, really developing a player. Like, hey, Jokic, you were great going left. We got to work on going. That's what you see in these stats. How do they do when they dribble 2 times going to the right? Okay, 2 times going to the left. That's great in game-to-game scouting. It's great granular player development. It's not great in making your first round of cuts because there's no way to evaluate 150 data points on 20 million players.
Yeah, but I think it's great though. You say you ask the coach according to how you would do it, and if you could filter it down to the individual coach and their process or how they do things, man, I think that will be great.
That's the goal, man.
Yeah. The data don't lie. Hey, Big Mike, next time we have a GOAT conversation, Ryan has to be the special guest of honor. You know what I'm saying?
Have Rob, Mike, have Rob here.
Yeah, because Wilt Chamberlain, the data don't lie. You know what I'm saying?
Here's one problem. I hate this. Our database only covers the play-by-play era, which kind of sucks. Or the box score, the traditional box score era. But we can.
Okay, I'll have the data. I got all that black and white film data.
Send the film over. We'll get it scattered. We'll add it to the database. We can help with the MJ LeBron debate, though. That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no need for that debate. We already know.
Yeah.
There's no need for that debate.
So, guys, we're going to talk about another stat stuffer, man. And this guy, he's been like really filling it up for San Antonio. And I'm going to start with you, Aldar. Well, what will it take for San Antonio to keep this young guy for the next 10 years to come? Because he's going to be a superstar in the making. And his skill set, I'm just shocked how great he is. What are your thoughts about them keeping him for the long run? Will he stay?
Look. I understand the question. I know how to read, but it's like, but my thing is, why would you leave? Unless you're, Kawhi Leonard, the claw, who's just, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Unless you him, why would you leave? So I went straight to it, right? George Iceman Gervin, right? When was it? Yeah. The Spurs paid $228,000 to get George Gervin from the Virginia Squires back in 1974. And he stayed with him 11 years out of his 18 years, and he filled in as a coach for a couple of years. So if the Iceman, who could have gone anywhere, several, scoring titles, this and that, he could have left at any time. Why did he stay? Right? Then I think David Robinson, the Admiral, right? Another top 50 Hall of Famer, right? 14 of his 14 years. He even had the option to re-enter the draft. Why did he stay with the Spurs and win 2 chips? Okay, never mind David Robinson. That's all old school. Let's go to Tim Duncan. 19 out of 19 years, franchise player record at the time, until Kobe did a +1, and then Dirk did a +1. Why did Tim Duncan stay? He could have played for anybody. Why did he stay? Why play for Coach Pops? Why play for this organization? It's like, why would you leave? For what reason would he have to leave? Like, how would the Spurs screw this up?
So you're saying that the franchise itself is what's keeping VW possibly with them for the next 10 years. Is that what you're saying?
And like I'm demonstrating you, the record doesn't lie, right? If you're a big man franchise player, the Spurs is the place to be. They take care of you. You're going to get development. You're going to stay healthy. You know what I'm saying? Just don't mess it up. Just follow the program, and you're going to get paid. You're going to get taken care of. You know what I'm saying? And 2/3 of Texas is going to love you.
Ryan, you agree with that, man? I don't think. I mean, in this era, these guys have so much opportunity to move around nowadays. You think he'll stay with the Spurs for the next 10 years?
It's a great question. I think that there's there's a difference between the mentality of foreign-born players versus American-born players. So I don't think he inherits like any sort of big or small market stigma. He may look at things a little bit more from the perspective of, I think traditionally people would have looked at things a little bit more from the perspective of where can you make the most endorsement dollars and this and that. But the fact is, in the internet age, I don't understand why. Like, what are we talking about? Car dealerships or like you can be a Nike athlete anywhere. So I don't necessarily even get that. I don't think he's going to get caught up in the Showtime aspect, the sexiness of like a Miami or LA or New York or anything like that. So I think it comes back to what Wild Dog's saying, which is the fundamentals of the franchise. And there's a demonstrable history of how great of a franchise San Antonio is. It's a city that only has one sport and loves its Spurs. So as well as our Cowboys. Hopefully our Cowboys, is that a shared opinion here? We'll have to talk about that one. But no, I think he will. But the only way that they could that wouldn't work out is if for some reason they weren't able as a team to figure out how to put winning pieces around him, and they demonstrated that over a couple of free agency periods. But they're not even. I mean, look back at the Mavs time early with Luka, like they're not even on the clock yet towards winning. So I think that they're in pole position to keep him is my view.
Yeah. So you think Popovich will have a great input on if he stays or goes? Depending on how long Popovich will continue to coach, but
that's a question. That's a question.
It's a good question. Yogi, your thoughts on this same subject?
Well, I think San Antonio probably has one up on most teams in the league because of their international culture. They have a relationship with the international community and basketball players like nobody else. I mean, the Mavericks, as many internationals they got, it's nothing like what San Antonio does, and they've already did it and succeeded. And I think it's important for players to be here, for you to be able to show them that you have a system and a process in place to make them happy, to get them interactive with the culture and keep them there. I think that's the easiest part of it because they just can show them the history of the Spurs. And I think that means a lot to these players that knowing that a franchise will do everything they can to make them happy and more importantly, build toward championships. And Ryan, great point about them not even being on the clock yet because they don't even need to start winning yet. He's still trying to figure the game out. And as he's getting better, it will eventually put more pressure on the Spurs, but they got at least 2 years before they have any pressure. So I think the Spurs have all the cards. I think there's no way he leaves the Spurs. No way.
So how long you think Popovich will stay? And if he does not stay, you think Tim Duncan will be the next guy in line?
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It will probably be if it's not Tim, it'll be somebody international. It won't be a coach that's born from here. They'll be born somewhere else. So if it's not Tim, it'll be somebody I think they're grooming Tim though. So, but it will be a big hit if Pop left though, because Pop has the pedigree. He has the stones on the wall when he walks in the room. He demands respect from American players as well as international players. So yeah, that'll be a big thing. I think we're going to get a couple of years left out of Pop. But all we can give, we're going to have to carry him out there if we get it more in a couple of years, right? All we get is a couple of years.
But Pops does have a coaching tree, so we know he develops coaches as well as players. So, all somebody has to do, you can plug me in there. I'll buy into the Spurs program, and we can get it done. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We may not finish strong, but we can get it done.
So your point, it should be a plug and play. It should really be a plug and play.
Yeah, follow the program. You just gotta, you buy into the program 1,000%. Exactly. It's gonna happen.
I kind of differ when in regards to Tim Duncan being the next coach. I don't know if y'all really thought about it, but I think Avery Johnson could possibly be the next coach for the Spurs.
He's coached before. He's coached college. He's coached pros.
I don't know, Big Mike. That lady in Vegas might flip flop and come back.
I hope that.
You know what I'm saying?
I could see that one, Wild Dog.
I
could see Becky Hammon as the first female NBA head coach.
I think she would be coached before Avery would be coached.
Yeah.
I think
Avery now, I believe, is doing some real estate stuff. I know he lives in Dallas at the moment. But obviously, if he had an interest, I would question. I don't know, but I would question how interested Avery is in it. But I could see the Spurs being the first franchise to, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Becky the first female assistant coach in the NBA?
I want to say she
for
was.
the Spurs.
And then she also coached their G League team.
Yeah. Michael Finley put a bug in Pop's ear on that one.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
And Spurs, I mean, they're a legacy team, so I could see them going, with Wembanyama for the remainder of the kid's career. And speaking of legacies, and we're going to go back to you, Ryan, we want to talk about Mr. MJ, Michael Jordan. The time that you had to enjoy him as a kid, as a youth, watching him play, what are your thoughts about his legacy as far as him being an NBA player and his impact on the game itself?
I think he's still regarded as the greatest. The ultimate champion. Like, put that dude in any situation and he will figure out how to win. It doesn't matter. Dogged, relentless. I think of guys that have followed in his footsteps that have tried to emulate him and the legacy he left. A guy like Kobe Bryant, who I think a lot of those traits, like when you aspire to truly be like someone, you try to embody all of their traits, not just their game and the way they play, but the way they carry themselves, the way that they work, and the expectations they have on the people around them as the leader of the team, which MJ was. I hope you guys had I'm sure you guys all had a chance to watch The Last Dance, but one scene that just like really got me, and that was when he started crying and he said, "I never asked anyone to do something that I wasn't willing to do." And that degree of I think it just genuinely hurts him that he feels misinterpreted, like he's this big jerk that was asking people to do stuff that he didn't do. And that's not the case at all. Like,
but he was a big jerk, though. It just wasn't because of that.
he was a jerk, but I mean, he maybe was a jerk.
Okay, yeah.
But I think that's it can be incumbent on a certain type of leadership style. Is my point there. Right. And I think that his leadership style was really consisted of really high expectations, and that those high expectations are the reason why he was so wildly successful. And if he was perceived as a jerk, it was only in the same way he would have acted towards himself. Like, you didn't dive for that loose ball. Like, if I myself had not dived for that loose ball, I'd be pissed at myself right now. And now I'm mad at you because I hold you to the same expectations I hold me, because that's how we are going to win.
Mike didn't dive for loose balls. Mike shot the ball. He didn't dive for loose balls. He had people for that. He didn't dive for loose balls.
He went out of bounds many a time.
Yogi must be Team LeBron, man.
No, it's not that. No.
He led the league in steals, so how he's not diving?
You know how he led the league in steals? Y'all really want to go here? He led the league in steals because he guarded the weakest guy on offense and he played the passing lanes. Mike, he would guard the point guard and play the pass lane. He did not do that. Was I the only one I couldn't have been on the one that seen that. I couldn't have been on the one that seen that. I could not have. Please tell me I was not.
Hey, I was 6, so I'll back up.
Matchups are strategic, so I mean, you saying that, but figuring that out.
Wait a minute. So you saw it too. Now you're making an excuse.
But the thing is, it's team ball. It's one thing to be told what to do. It's one thing to recognize that, it's better for the team if I do this or we play this matchup or whatever. It looks better for me if I'm one-on-one, whatever your best player is. But overall, it's better if I shift, take what may not be the better look, but what's better for the team.
With the best player. Mike was never one-on-one. That was always Scottie Pippen. That was always Scottie Pippen.
I'm talking about the whole breadth of it. I don't know if you're talking about old man Jordan or what you're talking about. But
what you mean? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't you be talking about it. You don't know. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
But I know exactly what I'm talking about. And there was a transition. And Mike said, okay, Pippen, we need you on so-and-so, or put me here, or yeah, coach, we need to do something different here, you know? And so it's one thing just to be told, but to be able to see it yourself and recognize it, that's a gift within itself, especially at high caliber of a ball player.
Do you guys not agree?
I've seen where MJ has literally picked his moments and shut guys down. But the breadth of the game, the breadth of the season.
Who is you seen what? Who? When? Who? And what was Scottie Pippen doing while he was doing that?
Everybody wanted to look at, MJ hitting a game-winning shot or whatever like that.
That's all he was. That's all Mike did. That's what Mike did.
You forget about what Big Mike was trying to highlight to you about the game-winning steals. You got to have the ball to score the ball or the game-winning block. You forget about that. You forget about Defensive Player of the Year. They don't give that away.
I forgot about
that. They don't give that away.
Mike had at that point.
MVP is a marketing game. Right. Defensive Player of the Year is not a marketing game.
Away. You're right. They don't get those away. I have to agree with you. They don't get those away. They don't. You're right. They showed off.
So, in your opinion, and Yogi, what do you think about his legacy, man? Do you think he has a legacy that's lasting?
I think by us even being able to argue about a guy that hadn't laced him up in years is great. It shows the level of his greatness. I think that whether or not he was the GOAT of this age or the GOAT of that age, he was the GOAT of an age. I cannot take that away. Whether or not he was the greatest of all time, that's strictly for opinion. But again, if we look at numbers, we're not looking at numbers, but his legacy, man, listen, we got kids wearing his shoes that never seen him play. And that speaks volumes in itself, man. To do what Mike did for basketball, they should probably change the logo for what Mike did for basketball. Because Mike internationally, when he went across, they were rock stars because of Mike. What Mike did for the game, man, was phenomenal. And you can't, and I can argue everything, but I can't argue that. What Mike did for the game was phenomenal. And his legacy never be touched. So
in other words, he kind of advanced the NBA.
Oh, absolutely. Because it was in limbo. It was in limbo when he came in, and they needed somebody to take it to the next level. And Mike definitely did that.
But wait, if you think it was in limbo, what happened to the Bird and Magic years? That was right before that.
They were getting old. Backs were falling out. Man, they were getting old, man. They were getting old.
Big Mike, I feel like Bird and Magic helped save basketball.
Yes.
And then primed it for MJ to take it to the next level.
Yes. And
like Yogi was talking about globally and pushing it towards the global market like Stern wanted in the first place. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Against everybody else's advice. But here we're sitting at number 3 globally in sports. You know what I'm saying? And we got international.
It was a perfect storm.
International shit. And then like Yogi was talking about the branding. And I was gonna mention my son, he has AIs, but for his 2 pair of AIs, he's got a dozen pair of Jordans. You know what I'm saying? And Jordans I can buy used and they like new. You know what I'm saying?
But
I go buy a brand new pair of shoes, and in a month, I'm like, dog, what did you do to these? You know what I'm saying? But the Jordans, when he's done with them, they're ready to go bless somebody else. We can donate it, resell it, or whatever.
The difference between LeBron and Jordan, LeBron took the branding thing and used it for himself. LeBron would have took it and gave it to the league. He would have showed the league how to do it. And all the guys, all his buddies, everybody would have been doing what he was doing. That's the only difference between the two. LeBron wanted to make the league better. Mike made him better.
Well, to the point you said earlier, he saved the league in essence. You know what I mean? So the league actually made him better. They advertised him more than they did anything that I can remember.
But it didn't come without a price because Mike was like, and his wife was every time you see me use my likeness, I need to check the mailbox when you get check in.
But like you said, Big Mike, it kind of comes full circle. It's like, Nike in the league propelled Mike's career, right? Like they need him to help bring everything to the next level. But at this point in the game, elder statesman, it's like Jordan's legacy is that he helped sell basketball. His career, his legacy is selling basketball. And his legacy of the Jordan brand sells more Nikes than Nike sells Jordans.
Exactly.
Everything is split. So
Yogi,
when they
this is not.
poured into Jordan, they're reaping the benefits fully now.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Gotcha.
saying?
Yes.
So
And
Yogi,
they'll
this
be
is not
ongoing.
on the tip of his legacy, but do you think if Jordan was in this era, how would he perform? You think he'd be as an all-star or superstar as he was then?
Well, there's some players that, regardless of what era you put them in, they're going to be who they are. Mike, with the drive that he had, he was going to be winning at any time that he was in. Now, as far as the team that they had assembled, they had championship teams assembled from 1 to 5. Those guys, everybody knew their roles and knew what to do, and they were going to win. I just think wherever Mike was, he was going to win. The same with LeBron. I just
like
think,
Yogi said, he could argue all day this and that, but it's like,
yeah.
but the thing in the interview that I saw, Jordan's response was like, yeah, whatever. He's like, I'm not even trying to have that conversation, right? I have the best basketball team that ever existed, and that is not.
Who can argue that?
The data, eye test. There's no argument there, and it's like
everybody that gave him fits, he had him on his team. He would have got him and had him on his team. We don't talk about that though. We don't talk about that. We'll talk about the Ron Harpers. We don't talk about all those guys that gave Mike fits that he went and got on his team. We're not talking about that. We're talking about whether or not Mike will win. Yes, he would, because he would go and get the guys to partner when they would win. They would win, but definitely they would win. They would win.
Ryan, this question is for you. If you had to compare the Chicago Bulls then to, say, the Golden State Warriors now, who you think would be comparable as far as if you had to use Cerebro stats?
Oh man, we could do it. Is this a question around like how would those two look against each other?
If they say, for instance, if it was a 5-game series, stat wise, you think Chicago will beat them, or how would it be?
Man, and I assume we're talking about like the best Warriors teams, like Kevin Durant.
What Ryan? Before you ask, I just asking this: what are we allowed to do, and what are we not allowed to do? Are we playing back then?
How are we officiating this game?
Yes. Can we handshake?
Okay, I would say 90s officiating. So where
they get killed. They get killed.
Yeah, I think both teams.
You take out that semicircle. You just take out the semicircle alone. It's over with. It's over with. It's over with.
Run off of no pin.
Just take out that one rule.
I'm not getting shot off because we elbowing and we doing. Oh man, that ain't close. It's not.
Big Mike. Then my first thought was like, this is a trick question because you got Kerr coaching the Warriors. So you asked the question, but the answer is in the question. You got Steve Kerr, Chicago's Bulls coaching them. So it's
man,
they wouldn't be who they was without Phil Jackson 2.0 and Pop 2.0. You know what I'm saying? A guy coached by two of the greatest and played on the greatest. I mean, yeah, they wouldn't. They wouldn't have that chance to be who they were without a Chicago Bull.
So Ryan, you agree with that? Do you think they'll destroy the Golden State Warriors? I think they'll adjust. I mean, it's a 5-game series.
I think the game has gotten significantly more skilled. I think if you watch players that are even coming in now, like they grew up on some of them grew up like high school age they were watching the Warriors and emulating like the first wave of. I remember back then, if you went to like a youth gym, you're seeing kids pull up from like, half court for like the first time ever. So you got a bunch of little Steph Currys running around now. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the Warriors. On top of that, they stacked a team that was one of the first teams that was truly like, they could play numerous positions. And that was really important because of switches off of, if there'd be a screen and roll, all of a sudden you've got like this same like amorphous dude that's the perfect like 6'8", 225. Like he can guard every position, he can move his feet, like it's everything, right? So that construction of a team, number one, was just incredibly good and should be super compelling. Of course, on the flip side, that was non-traditional. Like the ideal non-traditional team. And now we're talking about putting them against the perfect traditional team. And how would those two go against each other.
Is KD on that team?
With KD on that team.
Because if you put KD on the team, I say, whoa, hold on a second.
No, I'm putting KD on that team. I'm counting KD.
If you put him on that team, they stand a chance if you put him on that team.
They do. They do. They do. Like they're top to bottom. That is a more skilled team. That's a more versatile team in terms of ability to switch, like again off of screens. Which in today's NBA, at least, as the theory of the game has evolved, like switching is a huge deal. Like you're looking for those, you're hunting those mismatches all the time.
So you're saying that they'll play more man-to-man than zone. So if that be the case, they play man-to-man, who's guarding who?
And that's what I was going to ask. Who's guarding who?
Right?
That's what I was just asking.
And my point is on the Warriors, it kind of doesn't matter that much. I mean, you would still see you'd still see MJ get his, like that would always happen no matter what. You'd see Scotty get his. It's always going to happen no matter what. But on the flip side, I believe personally, Steph Curry, his game would be disadvantaged by the way that the game was called then to a degree. But that dude's going to get shots. Like it's going to happen. I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you have, like just watched him for a minute off the ball. Like it's insane.
But if you put Scottie Pippen on him, you don't take him out of the game.
Scottie Pippen's, there's gonna be a pick set on Scottie Pippen. Steph's running around it.
It would have to be. It would have to be.
Totally.
But
they will. 100% they will. But
go
ahead, Wild Dog.
But my key, Ryan, you said, the ball in Steph's hand, you got to have the ball. You got to have possession. And I think the Worm would have something to say about that.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is what I'm saying about Steph is watch him move without the ball.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to state that point. He moves without the ball.
Crazy. It's insane. Like you would get so tired trying to guard him because you're literally running a marathon the entire game. And that's what a lot of, like when I was playing, like I did a lot of, I was a perimeter shooter, right? So like you're just constantly like running and hunting for picks and like brushing off of them and coming off the corners, and that's how you get your looks.
He didn't run any more than Reggie Miller was running.
No, exactly. No, that's a great point. Like Reggie did the same kind of stuff.
What's the ball head kid in Detroit? Hamilton they were runners. Those guys were running off picks the whole conference.
Absolutely. But Steph's Warriors team was better than those Pacers teams that Reggie was playing on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's a good point. I just wouldn't use that as a point to say that MJ got past those Pacers teams. Like we're not talking about the same teams. Maybe we're talking about one particular matchup, but like overall, again, the versatility of that, the non-traditional approach of being able to spread the floor like that degree of skill. I mean, in terms of shooters, Steve Kerr, obviously like an all-time great shooter. Mm-hmm. You've got multiple of those. You've got a guy in Klay Thompson at his prime. Mm-hmm. You've got Kevin Durant in his prime. Yeah. You've got Steph Curry in his prime. Yeah. Those are three problems. Like,
and don't forget Iguodala.
Iggy was great. And you talk about guarding. Okay, so you switch. You run. At that time you run a pick and roll, right? And so you get Draymond Green off you, and now you got Andre Iguodala guarding you. Like again, it's like the same dude. Like it's tough.
I just don't know if they play defense well enough to stop. Who's gonna guard Mike? Who's gonna guard Mike? Is Mike gonna average 40, 50 points? Who's gonna guard him? I just don't know.
As a Mavericks fan, watch how some teams elect to play the Mavericks, and they say, Luka,
get your ball.
Go for it, bud. Go for it. 50, 40, whatever you want. It's yours. What you're not doing is making passes to other players.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a theory. It does, obviously it doesn't always work. Yeah. Like those dudes are problems.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Big Mike, Yogi and I don't want to, give a misunderstanding to the audience. We're not talking about no bull sweep, but you know what I'm saying? If we look at it, a win is a win. I would give the edge to the Bulls. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm not either. I'm not saying a Warriors sweep. Also remember, I was like 6 years old, so I could have a little recency bias baked in here. But overall, I do feel like the game has gotten more skilled. I also know the officiating has gotten a lot softer too. So where does that net out? Like,
and I think that will be the point. That's the point right there we're trying to make.
Yeah.
Which one who would it benefit more? The Bulls would have benefited because that's who's probably going to end up winning. The one that the officiating benefits the most, I believe.
Yeah.
Because the Bulls got seasoned by the Celtics, and they sure as heck got seasoned by the Pistons. So, iron sharpens iron. And if I look at the level of competition and the type of competition and what developed out of the style of officiating, yeah, boy, oh boy, yeah. You know what I'm saying? 2-3 peats is not bad.
Ryan does make a great point.
Yeah,
the league, Golden State is very skilled. They can spread you out like you've never been spread out before. And everybody's on the island. Now you're trying to figure out how do I get help? And
because the mid 80s on through the 90s, probably to the mid 2000s, I mean, we're all on that scientific mode of basketball. You know what I'm saying? You have to have your role, your niche, and all that stuff. And then I'm celebrating basketball going to its roots where it's positionless.
Yeah. So nowadays they're working a 5-out a lot. So it's just who you're gonna guard because the 5-out is the most prominent offense that they're using nowadays. Man. So Yogi, I got a question for you. Did you get a chance to watch that Mavs Jazz game?
I did. And so I had to check to see if I was watching the Clippers fly slammer down, but dude, I'm serious. It makes before you get to the question, it makes you think, wow, I've never seen a Maverick team this athletic, this long, and everything. They were just throwing the ball up and the guys were going to get it. I've never seen the Mavericks this athletic. Awesome job in scouting, awesome job going to get people. Awesome job, man. Okay, go ahead with your question.
So to my point, what is going on with the Jazz, man? The last few years, even when they had Spider playing for them and Gobert, they still haven't really excelled to where they've been with the Karl Malone years. So what's going on with them now?
Well, it's crazy because they got all those draft picks, and you keep thinking, okay, they're going to be like Oklahoma City, load up with draft picks, and the young players are going to take the league over, and nothing. It's just nothing. It's just like it's funny because I was looking at them last night and I thought, but wait a minute, I thought y'all were going to rebuild, and it's like they're in the middle of making a decision and they can't decide which direction to take the team in. It's like we haven't decided whether or not we want to get rid of these guys and go for broke, or we're going to keep some of them and maybe we can do it, maybe we can't. Well, let's think about it a year. Well, in the midst of you thinking about it a couple of years, you're getting beat like a drum. Because you hadn't made a decision one way or the other what you're going to do. So you're in limbo. And the worst thing for a basketball team is to be in limbo because you got guys that are playing for contracts, you got guys that are in between years, and you got guys that are playing at peak years. You got some really good players on that team. And it's not fair to them to be in limbo like that because they are definitely in limbo right now. Because they wasn't bad when they had Spider. They wasn't bad. They made the playoffs. They just ran into a buzzsaw Maverick team. They wasn't bad. And to go from there to just circling around in the ocean out there, man. Now somebody need to be fired.
I'm glad it's not me this time. Thank you, Yogi.
So Ryan, you text me and said you was at the Jazz team hotel right now, only to discuss how the Jazz suck. So I'm gonna throw it to you, man. Kind of give me your points on what's going on with them, man. I can't pinpoint.
Well,
Yogi had a good analysis.
I think Yogi makes a really good point around them being in a limbo phase, and also that limbo is like the NBA's purgatory. It's the worst place to be because you're actually getting nowhere. Like you're not building draft capital. You're not making a run at a championship. It's no man's land. You did nothing except, I guess, earn the revenue of 82 games. It's terrible. It does feel like that's where they're at because they do have some good players. I think if you ask them, they would say we're leaning into a youth movement. And early in these seasons, we are seeing how far we can take it. And then once it's obvious that this is not the year that this young team's going to turn the corner, we basically pull the plug. Like if you look at the Jazz roster last night, who they actually put on the floor. 2 of their 3 best players were not there. And so, to what extent have they, in my view, like my personal opinion is they probably have pulled the plug on this season already. They've decided to veer towards draft, but early in the season, they were kind of like splitting the difference. And the later you make that turn, the worse off you're actually going to be. That's that purgatory that we're talking about. But I think that, you look at a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who ironically was the guy that was sitting like right across from where I was sitting this morning. And I mean, that kid has really figured it out since getting to Utah. The Lauri that they had in Chicago is not the same Lauri that they got, honestly, from the first game he started playing for the Jazz. I remember last year they started really, really hot, like shockingly hot, especially leading up to All-Star, like early season. But I want to say like the first, I don't know, probably like 30 or 40 games, they were, winning 75% of them. And then it dipped. But Lauri was a huge part of that. So he's young still. He could be a real piece. He played last night and not have a good game. But again, like a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who a little confusing for me, like where is he on the timeline for that team? A guy like John Collins, who honestly I'm pretty confused on where he's at on the timeline for the team.
Because didn't they trade for him? They did. And so I wonder, is that going to be a flip? Are they intending to flip him again to end up stocking up on some younger players or some draft picks or something? But like, let's face it, winning a championship, being at that top tier is incredibly hard. It's like very few teams do it on an annual basis, and being able to do it in a market, with all due respect to Utah, although Dirk said Utah's a bad city, one of the funniest ever.
He lost a tooth there, didn't he?
He did. He was not a fan. But hey, they may be our clients. So like Utah, you guys, it's going to be a difficult market to recruit free agent talent in. So that makes it even harder to build a true top tier team, which means you got to trade your way into it to do what. So that's like one extreme. On the other extreme, to do what Oklahoma City did, like that was historic in stocking up picks. So you've got like these 2 extremes. You're trying to gauge a team that's frankly in a middle market against. It's really, really difficult. They're going to have to build this through the draft probably. And that's going to take time. You're going to need to hit on draft picks. Those draft picks are going to have to align on timelines. You got to figure out how to manage a cap well, how to sign the right guys. Probably going to have to overpay those middle of the road players role players to get them in, hit on some trades. It's just tough. It's hard.
I want to go back to marketing. I mean, wasn't Mavericks able to draft him, but they kind of passed on him at that time?
I believe so. I do think he's one of those guys, and obviously, I think it was the case for other teams too. But like I said, Lauri for whatever reason didn't really blossom until I think he showed flashes in Chicago, but
he
really blossomed last year.
He was really good last year.
He's still young, so like there's every player's journey is different. Every team situation is different. The scheme that they're running, and then like I said with the player, like what's their maturity level off the court? What's their maturity level of their game? There's so many variables that go into it. Some guys never get there. Some guys blossom late. You never know. I guess the Mavericks passing on him looked pretty smart during his Chicago stint, and looked pretty dumb his first year in Utah, when they also, I think, had discussed maybe trading for him too. And for a minute, at least, I kind of wish that they had as a Mavericks fan.
So let me ask you a question. If you were the GM for Utah right now, what would be your first line of business?
Good question.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think that I would probably start looking at guys that I can trade. So I could stock up on draft capital. Honestly, as bad as it sounds and as anti-purgatory as I know I opened, being a team that is early, like probably on average, like early in their development cycle, but at the same time, like you've got guys that you think, like it's not a Wemby San Antonio situation where you know that this team's not going to compete this year. Like it's more like what San Antonio is going to be in 2 years from now, like in Wemby's third year. And there is some degree of expectation around competing. That's kind of the timeline some of these guys they drafted in this period that they haven't been very good is. So you have to start your season attempting to win. And if you end up with an Oklahoma City Thunder situation where they're blossoming, like you go in on that. But it's like it's a really difficult thing to do. So now that you've jerked the wheel, you go all in. But I don't blame them for kind of like trying to split the difference for a good chunk of the season to see what their young team could do and what these young guys are.
So you as the GM again, would you would have let go Quinn Snyder as the head coach? Even he took you to the playoffs for several years.
Did they let him go? I can't remember if he quit or
it was a mutual agreement. They both agreed. Quinn, we're gonna let you go. He said, "Okay, yeah, you can let me go." Yeah. But Quinn looked like from looking at the way he was the last couple of games before he quit, he looked like he was talking to a room that wasn't listening to him anymore. That's what he looked like. That's what he looked like.
That Utah team.
He coaches
that Utah team had run its course. Yeah. There's I think we all knew, I'm sure Jazz fans knew, everyone knew, if they did not get past the Mavericks that year, like this ain't gonna work. And again, if it's not gonna work, you go the other direction, you see what you can get, you flip your pieces, and that's what they did. And I guess they thought Quinn wasn't the guy for the rebuild, and apparently Quinn didn't think so either. Wasn't there for it.
And Will Hardy, since 2022, has a 37-45 record. So we'll see how they're going to deal with him in the next couple of years. Well, Dog, your thoughts on this same subject? Do you think there's some chances of salvaging this Utah team, or you think they need to go ahead and move to another city and state?
I mean, okay, you guys hit on some things, right? So I made some notes, right? Words like limbo, pulling the plug, confusion, and then the whole scenario with Snyder, right? And the fact that patience is getting short with Will Hardy, who's a part of Greg Popovich's coaching tree at 37-45. I've already hearing rumbles. And yeah, this is what we call, and then Utah Jazz have not won anything. So where is this high and mighty standard coming from? Where is this all of a sudden this artificial pressure coming from, right? You know, the Stockton and Malone days, they went and lost to greatness, of course. You got great players who are giving you division titles. Where is this all coming from? Where's this all stemming from that it's not good enough and that somehow the fans in Utah aren't happy, you know? So you've got a young and talented, pedigree coach, The only thing I could say is I like Justin Sanic better as the assistant general manager than as a general manager because he's then put himself in the hot seat and potentially the scapegoat. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. Some organizations have it and been able to put it together and keep it together. Other organizations simply have not, and you have to have.
Yes, that's the best point. That's the best point. That's the best point that's been made. They've never been able to do it. They've always been out there by themselves. I think they need to pack the truck up when everybody goes to sleep tonight.
And like Ryan said, you're at the cusp of something and you pull the plug before you can even get going. You know what I'm saying? The Chicago Bulls had nothing from Jerry Sloan, right? Mm-hmm. Mr. Chicago, right? To Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So
well,
it
just takes all you gotta do is get one player turns around. But now, okay, not to cut y'all out, dog. But I gotta say,
no, you're good.
But I think the problem started with this. Jerry Sloan, old school coach, old school morals. I'm not putting up with that BS from none of y'all. When you come to Utah, we're going to beat the hell out of you, and we're going to make sure you know you've been in Utah. Jerry Sloan's getting old. New school kids come through. That old school way of thinking and teaching don't work and don't fly anymore.
So but wasn't it after Jerry Sloan? It was Tyrone Corbin, so he was coached by
exactly. But as Jerry Sloan was leaving, his methodology was leaving as well. And in new school kids, you can't. I just don't think you can't do them that way.
Big Mike in the locker room, a core of dysfunction is identity crisis. That's all I wanted to add in there. You see?
So in other words, there's no hope for Utah. We need to go ahead and put them in purgatory.
If they don't know who they are, they can't know where they're going. They don't know who they are, and they can't know where they're going, and it just is what it is. And I don't want to see any more scapegoats because you've got quality personnel. You just have to have the patience to let it pan out.
So do they still have the same ownership?
I think so.
Yeah,
they changed ownership recently, like in the last 5 years for sure.
Is it a Vegas?
Maybe that's what's going on.
No, this was like a tech billionaire. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So he's not from
Vegas. The young guy. He's not from
Vegas. Yeah. Bought it from the family that owned them for a long time.
Mr. Smith is an American billionaire businessman. He's an executive chairman and co-founder of Qualtrics, an experienced management company based in Provo, Utah. Yeah, so it's a tech hit.
So in other words, I need to go out there and change the whole franchise around. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to go back to our last subject, man. And Ryan, I want to get your word on this one. You were probably 6 years old when this guy was playing too. Clyde Drexler, man. What are your thoughts on his career and how good was he? Because a lot of people want to compare his career against Jordan's career, but in my opinion, I think Clyde Drexler was a way better player than Jordan. But I want to hear your thoughts on it, Ryan.
Clyde Drexler was a great player. I think in certain ways, he probably he had certain skill sets for sure that I think were unique to him. As an overall player, to me, the GOAT conversation just comes down to two guys. One of them is still playing and north of 40 years old, and the other one is not, and his name's Michael Jordan. I don't personally think Clyde belongs in that discussion. However, I don't think you have to be a GOAT to be considered one of the all-time greats and should be appreciated by basketball fans everywhere, full stop, end of discussion. Clyde's in that conversation, no doubt about it. When like you said, I was a kid when Clyde was playing, but I can tell you from his time with Portland, even just in looking at our data, there's not a lot of guys that produce a resume like Clyde Drexler has. Let's see. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 seasons of medaling, which for us means that you're in the top 20 to 30% of whatever league it is you're playing in.
Wow.
16 seasons. That's unbelievable.
Data don't lie.
It's crazy.
And in between that, he had 10 All-Stars and one championship in 1995. And also, he was the Houston Rockets career leading scorer for the Houston Rockets. Wow.
That's crazy. Say that again. He is the all-time leading scorer for the Houston Rockets.
Mm-hmm. But I think he played that long. I think he played that long. I know they traded.
He's all-time leading scorer. And I'm looking at the Hall of Fame hoophall.com. It's an all-time leading scorer in Houston Rockets history.
Wow.
Well, he
maybe overall as a player, but I had him the all-time leading scorer for the team in Portland Trailblazers until Damian Lillard caught up with him. But it may have been because he was with the franchise, they look at his whole career. So career-wise, that's where they're going with that. Yeah, that's where
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where they're going with that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But I mean, your thoughts though. You think he's better equipped to be in comparisons to Jordan, Ryan, or you think his career was just not long?
Oh no, I do think his career was long enough. I think though the question becomes, I mean, you're talking about a guy that played from we have data on from 1983 to 1998. And other than his rookie year, was a medalist in all of those seasons. So that's crazy. I mean, does he deserve to be in that conversation? I think that conversation is interesting, not to take it back to LeBron versus MJ necessarily, but when you look at that conversation, one of the dimensions between those two guys, one of the dimensions you start to look at is longevity. If you look at the guy who shined the brightest, like the way that we look at it, that's how you define GOAT. The guy that shined the brightest was Michael Jeffrey Jordan. The guy that shined bright for the longest, well, that would be LeBron James. And Clyde is like somewhere between those two, right? He did it for a longer period than Mike did. And that greatness over time, I think the closer you get to athletes or to being an athlete, you begin to recognize, like I had a buddy, I didn't play college ball, but one of my good friends that I played with in high school did. And I remember he was the freshman of the year in his conference. Obviously his freshman year, he was, I think, the player of the conference his sophomore year. By his junior year, senior year, he started falling off. I was like, dude, what's going on? Like, you should be getting better. He's like, man, do you know how labor intensive, how taxing it is to play 35 games? And I was like, wow. Like, imagine at that time, I remember thinking back to Jason Kidd was like the long in the tooth guy. I was like, dude, how many games has this guy played? And you just begin to recognize the greatness of being able to do that over such a long period. It makes you appreciate a guy like Clyde and a guy like Dirk and a guy like Tim and a guy like Kobe. It's just, and of course, a guy like LeBron. It's just not an easy thing to do. And for him to do it at the level he did it, for as long as he did it, and to do that in winning situations, I mean, you take your hat off to him and you put him on your top 10 list all day, every day.
The only caveat I would have between Clyde and Michael is the 6 championships. That's about it.
Oh, is that it?
So, Wild Dog, give me your take on the career of Mr. Clyde Drexler.
Well, I mean, as far as I wanted to talk first about similarity. So, I mean, when it comes to, their life and career, they were both rejects from the high school basketball team. Imagine that. Both Clyde and Air were rejected by their high school coaches.
that will put the dog in you. Where you set your standard and refuse to ever go again. Like that's the moment those dudes did. That was defining.
And then they were both, I mean, the most vested teams were their home teams. So Air out of North Carolina ended up in North Carolina, right? Because there was interest, but that was the most interested team was, his home university. And then, the Glide being out of Houston, the most interested team ended up being the University of Houston. That's where he ended up. So recruited, but not highly desirable, even getting to college. And then they both showed out. So Clyde being an All-American, not one, but 2 Final Fours. And with the Phi Slamma Jamma playing along with Akeem Olajuwon.
Oh, yeah.
Just that career alone, that college career alone, legendary. He's a legend, national legend, and treasure just by that alone. That's your moneymaker right there. You can go do whatever you want to do, right? And make your millions just based off of that college career. Not only the fact that he studied finance and was a banker while in college. So you know what I'm saying? So the money was coming. But when we get to the league, thanks to LeBron, I can mention Big Mike. You mentioned he won 1 chip. But I can mention, thanks to LeBron, he was 1 of 3, right? Because it wasn't just Jordan, who got iron sharp as iron. that got strong from the Pistons because the Drexler-led Blazers went up against the Detroit Pistons and lost.
Really good basketball team.
We want to forget that.
Really good basketball team. That was a good Pacers team too, man.
Great. Come on now. We want to forget that. And then when Drexler got it together, him and Porter, and got them back to the show, who they come up against?
The
Jordan-led Bulls. Come on now. Oh, you a loser. Come on, really? Come on, really? Come on, dog. When was anybody else supposed to get in? In the 80s, it was the Celtics and Lakers. When was anybody else supposed to get in? Right? You get to the 90s, you got the Pistons coming off. You know what I'm saying? The Lakers still trying to hold on, and the Bulls going into their full maturity. Come on now. And then he reunites with Hakeem Olajuwon, in Houston.
Dream.
And he wins a chip. So 1 for 3. So 3 finals appearances. Thanks to LeBron, I can say, look, 3, not 1 and 1, but he made it to the show 3 times. That's significant. When we got so many great players who never even made it to the finals once, and a 2-time Hall of Famer. You know what I'm saying? Yes, as a player, of course. And then he was selected for the Dream Team to play right around with his air greatness. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Where folks like Isaiah Thomas was put out thanks to Scottie Pippen. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, and then like we just talked about, scoring leader for the Blazers, and he still would be if it hadn't been for Damian Lillard. But we appreciate Damian's game, but look at the greatness. A compliment, to the Glide, and a compliment to Dame. So I college game, what he went through in high school, right? And then what he had to show and prove coming through college and being a college legend, I appreciate it. And then coming into the league, 3 finals, consistency, like Ryan was putting it down out of all those years, not just collecting a paycheck, high level of performance, consistency at a high level. I mean, it's to be admired and appreciated. And I'm thankful to have met the man. But I could have had 5 minutes with him, but I was too busy with Iceman. And then spent about 30 minutes talking to Walt Clyde Frazier. So, but I had a reason not to get my 4 or 5 minutes with him because of the company I was in, Yeah.
Facts. Yeah, so I agree with you, man. He had a wonderful career. I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Yogi, man. Your thoughts on the career that Clyde Drexler had?
Well, I want to say this, man. I think in the era where you have Jordan and LeBron, I think we probably need to do it by tiers. We got the greatest of all time on those tiers. Now you would say, well, and I think Clyde doesn't deserve to be on the tier with Michael because of what Michael did and what he meant to the game. Mm-hmm. But he is right there next to him. He is right below that, which there's not a dishonor to him. It's just saying that he wasn't considered the greatest of all time because Clyde did his thing wherever he was. He was a great teammate wherever he was. He won wherever he was. He just so happened not to win as many championships. But Clyde was solid. Never heard anybody complain or say a bad thing about him. As a matter of fact, all I heard was when Clyde was in the locker room, Clyde had a newspaper open, reading the business part of it.
Wall Street Journal. I remember that.
Yes. Great teammate. And I just think because Michael Jordan was so great, I think it overshadowed Clyde's career, and which was ultimately a great career in itself.
And Yogi, I agree. I mean, sometimes we just need to say, what if? Like Marvel fans would say, what if? What if Jordan was 10 years earlier, 10 years later? What would that have meant for certain, players like Clyde Drexler?
Yeah,
exactly. What would have happened? What kind of shift would there have been? And it's and we can't take anything away from the GOATs, but I do not want to diminish. You know what I'm saying? The other what if guys. The guys right underneath.
If you move Michael Jordan around, we have a different conversation about Utah because Utah would have won a championship.
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
If we move some things around, John Stockton would have got at least one. He'd have got at least one.
Yeah.
But you got people out there saying, "Oh, but they didn't win anything," and I'm just like, "Oh man," I'm like, "Oh Lord," I'm like, "Are you serious?" You know what I'm saying?
Well, guys, this conversation tonight has been amazing. I appreciate all of y'all coming on. Ryan, Yogi, Wild Dog. You know how we close out. So, Wild Dog, tell the audience where they can see you, your social media handles, and give them a little bit of information about you.
Hey, you know where to find me on YouTube at Wild DOWG 357, doing commentary. Sometimes, like here being a guest appearance, doing guest appearances on live streams or things of that nature. Just getting my speech therapy on. Love talking sports. All different kind of sports. From MMA, boxing, gymnastics, any kind of sports. I grew up with it. I did it. Being a gifted athlete. And so
gymnastics stuff.
Yeah, that made me much stronger. That full body core and the full body control.
Hey, that's not a joke.
On the basketball court, on the football field,
Mm-hmm.
and then it started early age with gymnastics. It did something for me, and not just doing backhand springs for the ladies.
I was a gymnast too. I was a gymnast too, so
really?
I know what you're saying. I was in gymnastics as well.
But look, Big Mike, I'll save you because even dance is like, oh, anybody want to experience ballet? I'm like, hey, you know what I'm saying? Lynn Swan, it wasn't too good for Lynn Swan. Hey, I'll go dance.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's dancing, right? I'll go.
I remember that.
Yogis. So let the people know where they can find you, your social media handles and all that good stuff.
Our social media handle is Yogi Lou. That's 2 G's, YOGGILEW. Yahoo, Facebook. We also do a podcast, Man Talk Mondays, on Mondays at 7 o'clock Central. And we just had a guy from Ready to Love on there.
Wow.
What's his name? Damare Turner, one of the guys that won on the show. He was on. We just interviewed him. We're gonna be airing it on Monday.
Nice.
Also, I'm working on a movie. I'm working on my own show. All that's coming out, and I have no dates. So I'm gonna just say it'll be out in 2024. Just keep looking for it.
If you need my help, man, I got you, man. Just let me know.
Absolutely, man.
And Ryan, our special guest. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm finna do my own podcast called Diamond in the Rough, where I'm going to be interviewing people from around the city that are on the cusp of being very successful, and I want to reach them, and talk to them, and see what keeps them motivated, keeps them going. So,
hey, we'll push that, man. I'm with it. So let me know what I can do to help. And our special guest today from Cerebro Sports, Ryan. Tell the people where they can find you.
Ryan, get your thing, man. Get your thing.
Ryan, the data don't lie. Ryan, the data don't lie.
That's right. No, thank you guys. This is fun. I spend my days in numbers and in business offices and investor pitches. So this is great. Talking real ball and actually getting to have some opinions is fun. But don't follow me. I'm super boring. Follow our company at Cerebro Sports. Go sign up for a free account. Go see how we rated some of these players historically. Just cerebrosports.com or at Cerebro Sports on Twitter. But yeah, that's it. No, thank you so much for the platform. This was amazing. Hopefully we could do something like this again sometime. We got some other folks on the team that I think would be amazing here too. So I appreciate the opportunity, Mike and Yogi. Wild Dog, is just great to meet you guys.
Man, thank you, man. Ryan's a good guy, man. He's been always in my corner, and I'm in his corner, so we help each other out as best we can, man. So, guys, thank you for coming on. It was a great show. We'll close out, man. Swish for real. Y'all be good, man. Have a great one, okay?
All right. Peace out, guys.
Peace.